In today's video, we are diving into Chapter 2 of James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. And if you don't have the book, go get it because you want to come on this journey with us. This is a phenomenal book. There's a lot of great stuff in here. There's tons to unpack. We talk about the 3 levels of change today that we go through or that we try for in our lives when we're trying to make improvements. He talks about how to change behaviors the right way so that they'll stick. And there's another point of contention I have with something that the author says as well, so you'll want to stay tuned for that. And now it's time to break barriers and build legacy. Hey, welcome back. It is Rob with you again with Chapter 2 of Atomic Habits by James Clear. And we have a lot to cover again today. This is a phenomenal book. There's so much in it. There's so much useful material, and there's so much to unpack. If you don't have it yet, you've got to go get this book. You can get it through your Amazon Audible. You can go get a free trial through my link down below. And then when you sign up for your free trial, you get a free book. Grab Atomic Habits, okay? If you're already an Audible member, fantastic. Get Atomic Habits through the Audible app. That's how I'm doing it. You can go grab it at your local bookstore too if you want, and grab the physical copy. However you want this, get it, because this is material that can help you live a better life. And that's the whole point here. So let's talk about Chapter 2, which is how your habits shape your identity and vice versa. It's a very interesting chapter, and again, there's a lot to cover here, but one of the things that James Clear starts off talking about is the fact that when we try to make changes in our lives, and especially when we try to change our habits, we don't really go about it the right way a lot of times. And so when people are trying to affect change in their lives, a lot of times what they do is they get stuck on results, right? You have a result that you don't like, and so you want to change that result, all right? And so the results-based thinking like that kind of leads us down a more difficult path than it needs to be, all right? And a lot of times people give up because the path is so difficult, and it's hard. Well, you can't change your results that have already happened, right? But if you are focused on results and that's what you're trying to change, you're going to have a lot harder time than if you focus on processes. And he kind of talked about that in Chapter 1. We talked about goals and how setting goals is great, but keeping your eye on the goal exclusively is not the right way to go about achieving the goal, right? And you wind up chasing this goal, and your happiness depends on whether or not you get the goal, whereas if you are focused on process, then your happiness can be derived from whether or not you are using the right processes, because you know that those processes are going to lead to your goal because you created those processes around the goal, right? And so that was Chapter 1. That's a quick summary of that, but he, again, touches on it here because outcome-oriented type of thinking is going to make it a lot more difficult to reach your goals, okay? So when we're talking about habits and when we're talking about changing things in your life, there's outcomes, right? There's processes, and then there's your identity, all right? And so again, the chapter here is how your habits shape your identity, right? And so this is something that, again, there's like a I guess what you'd call a feedback loop here. And that's what he calls it in the book at one point too. But there's a process here where your identity, how do you define your identity? Let's start there, right? You define your identity based on the evidence that you see before you, right? You are a writer because you write, right? You are an athlete because you perform, you work out every day and you play a sport, right? And it's something that you do all the time. You don't declare yourself an athlete because you went out and hit some tennis balls one time. Or, you know, as he points out in the chapter, you kicked a soccer ball once. Okay, that doesn't make you a soccer player, right? The identity that we adopt for ourselves, that identity is the result of overwhelming evidence that, you know, shows us that that's what we are, right? So where does this evidence come from? Well, it comes from our habits, right? Primarily. It comes from the activities that we do on a regular basis, okay? Not just the activities that we did once here or there. All right, if you're a musician, you play your instrument daily, or you play your instrument, most days anyway, whether it's practicing or performing or a mix of both. And you have systems and processes that help you advance your skills, because the goal is to be a musician. The goal is not simply to play your instrument, right? The goal is to be a musician. And so again, this identity is where that comes in. See, playing the instrument is the thing that you do, but that thing that you do provides the evidence that you are a musician. It just has to be over a long period, right? You don't play an instrument once and declare yourself a musician, okay? So that's the idea behind this. And again, he kind of talks about these 3 levels of change that we try for when we want to change something in our lives. And so outcomes, makes it harder to focus on outcomes. Processes, that makes it easier to reach our goals, right? But what really it comes down to is your identity. There's a very famous quote, and I don't remember who said it, but basically says that, and I'm paraphrasing, but it says that we will never act in a way that is contrary to how we see ourselves, at least not on a regular basis. We may do one thing here or there sometime, but our regular actions and our habits will never betray who we believe we are, right? And in the book, James Clear talks about smokers and quitting smoking. And there's a world of difference between two people who are trying to quit smoking, and somebody offers them a cigarette and one person says, no thanks, I'm trying to quit, as opposed to the other person who says, no thanks, I'm not a smoker. And that difference is subtle, but it's a very important one, because one person is identifying as someone who is trying to become something else. They're trying to be something they're not, is really what it is, right? They're trying to be a non-smoker. I'm trying to quit. The other person, they already identify themselves as a non-smoker. They have left the life of smoking behind. They are not a smoker. I'm not a smoker. I don't smoke. Okay? And the difference there, again, is subtle, but it's key. It's huge, all right? Because the way we see ourselves, again, has everything to do with how we act and the habits that we participate in, or the things that we do every day, right? These are the things that define who we are, okay, and shape our identity. And again, it's vice versa. And so there's this feedback loop that he talks about. And the fact that when you're trying to change your behavior, what happens is you have this identity and you're going against that identity until pretty soon the new behaviors start to take root, and then you live into that new identity, right? And it's difficult to do, and that's why many of us give up. But it's this constant feedback loop of, I see myself this way, and so I act this way in accordance with that. And what that does is it reinforces the way that I see myself, which then reinforces the way that I act, and it has this sort of, I don't know if I'd call it a spiraling effect necessarily, but a compounding effect, to use those words again. But it has the effect of reinforcing again that you are this person, and that is why you are acting this way, right? You act in accordance with your identity, whatever that is. Now, a lot of people take that and then they decide that they can't change, right? And that's where you get into some danger too. And James Clear would not say that at all, and neither would I. I know that I can change my identity because I have. And in fact, during my performance accelerator that I created, the whole day 2 was pretty much all about becoming you 2.0 and defining who you need to be and who you want to be in the future, and then starting to live into that and figuring out how to do that. So again, it's nice to see a best-selling book like this kind of support that idea. That is in my performance accelerator. It's a great validation that I'm on the right track, and you are too if you're a part of performance accelerator. But the whole key here, the whole idea, is living into a different identity, becoming someone else, right? Becoming you 2.0, the 2.0 version of yourself, which James Clear doesn't talk about. I'm using my own thing now, but I'm going to go back into Clear now. And Atomic Habits, because again, this feedback loop, this reinforces who you are through your actions, and your actions reinforce your identity, your self-identity, and pretty soon, you're kind of going on a different trajectory, right? You're going on a different path. And so, like James Clear says in the book, what we need to do if we want to change our habits is we need to figure out who it is that we need to become. Who is this new person? What do they do? What are the kinds of things that they do in order to get what they get, right? And then that is what needs to guide our behavior, okay? Is we need to step into this new identity and this feedback loop, right? Of the consistent performance of these actions helps to define our identity, and so on and so forth. And the identity then leads us to those actions, which lead us to this identity, and so on and so forth, right? That's how it works, okay? That's how we change our behaviors for good, okay? Is we need to be this new person. Now, the key to this and the way to get this to happen for yourself is to ask yourself this key question. This is a great takeaway from this chapter. Is ask yourself, what would this type of person do in my situation? Okay, so I'll give you an example that he gives in the book. He had a friend who lost like 50 pounds or something. And so her methodology for this, her way of doing it, was not that she was going to go on a diet, right? Or she was going to start exercising. No, she asked herself routinely throughout the day, what would a healthy person do? Okay. What would a healthy person do? Would a healthy person take a taxi or would they walk? Would a healthy person eat a salad or eat a burrito? Those are the kinds of questions to ask yourself, okay? Let's say you're a manager, okay? You're a manager of people at your business, at your job, and you want to be a more effective manager. You want to be a great leader, all right? So ask yourself, what would a great leader do? Given this situation, when I'm faced with a decision that I need to make, what would a great leader do? What decision would they make? Right? And ask yourself that. Now, here's the thing. This is immediately when I was listening to the book and I heard this, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's great advice. But what happens when you ask yourself this question and you don't know the answer, right? That can cause problems, okay? Like, what would a healthy person do? It's more obvious, I think, than some other things. Like a healthy person, you can kind of answer that intuitively, right? A healthy person would eat a salad and not a burrito, okay? When you're talking about like being a great leader, for instance, well, you don't know what you don't know, right? So when it comes to leadership, maybe you don't know what a great leader would do, okay? So where do you get the answers in that case? When you don't know the answer, what do you do? Well, there's a couple of methods that I'm going to recommend. One is that you find a great leader, okay? And you seek them out and you ask them and you give them the scenario. You say, what would you do in this case? All right? Successful people are generally willing to help you, okay? And this just touches on another point that James Clear talks about in the book. I'm going to take a quick aside here because he talks about the power of our thoughts some, and he talks about this idea that, if you walk around all the time thinking that people are rotten and that people are out to get you and that nobody wants to help you get where you want to go, that's the reality you're creating for yourself. You're going to come across more people like that. You're going to find the rotten people. All right, because our thoughts create our reality. Okay, he doesn't say it like that, but I do, and I've believed this for a long time. Our thoughts create our reality in that exact way, right? If you see the worst and the negative of people, then guess what? You're going to see that more often in more people, and you're going to find that in your life. Okay, so don't do that. All right, look for the good in people. People generally are willing to help you, okay? And especially successful people. That's been my experience, is successful people helped me on my road to success. And now I want to help you, okay? Successful people like to help other people because we enjoy watching other people succeed as well. That's part of it, okay? That's part of the fun. So find people that can help you. Find people that are good leaders that you admire and ask them, what would you do? Now, short of that, if you can't find anyone like that, if you don't know what else, somebody else to talk to about this who you consider a great leader or who you aspire to be, then we can turn to books, okay? Books are another great way. So you can go to a book and you can read a book by a great leader, and maybe they won't cover that exact scenario that you're trying to solve, okay, or that exact puzzle or whatever it is, okay. Maybe that exact thing isn't in there, but by reading the book, you can infer, right? You can see some of the things that they've done and some of the decisions that they've made that they've written about in that book, and then you can take the totality of that information and you can infer from it, and you can make an educated guess and put yourself sort of in the right ballpark at least, and then you can make adjustments, okay? So that's another method. Here's another method. This is one that relies on more modern technology, and I don't know that James Clear would have talked about this in the book. Maybe he does in a later chapter. Maybe he covers this whole thing in a later chapter of how to find the answers when you don't know. I don't know. I haven't read beyond chapter 2 yet, or listened beyond chapter 2 more accurately. But what you can do is you can go and use AI, okay? AI is being used for a lot of things that people, I hate to say should, but some things that are a little questionable, okay? There's a lot of nefarious uses of AI possibly out there. Look at me thinking about the nefarious uses of things, right? But I don't. I'm just saying, I'm pointing out that, what you see in the news a lot, for instance, by the media, and don't get me started on them, but what you see is the negatives, right? And so people have this horrific fear of AI. Well, AI can be very useful for things like this, for giving you insights that you might not have otherwise thought of. And that's one of the things that I use AI for, and I use it almost every day. And so you can go to AI and you can say, hey, look, I'm looking for great leaders. What do you know about great leaders, and what would a great leader do in this scenario? And give it the scenario, right? And if you want to, there's a lot of resources on how to prompt your AI correctly so that you can get good information, because AI, like anything machine related, is garbage in, garbage out. Okay, it's very much a garbage in, garbage out system. So you don't want to throw garbage at it. And so there are ways to improve your prompts and learn that. And I'm not going to get into that here, but you can use AI for this purpose and get an answer that way, okay? And, evaluate it and see if it makes sense for your situation, okay? This is one of the big dangers of AI, is people just take what it says and apply it, willy-nilly without, using any of their human capacity. And that's very dangerous, and I don't recommend that. But this idea of asking yourself, if you're in a leadership position, what would a great leader do? That's a phenomenal question to ask, because once you have the answer to it, now you have a path. Now you have something you can do that if you repeatedly do it, it will lead you to becoming a great leader, right? Because that behavior then reinforces your identity that you're becoming this great leader. And again, we spiral upward, right? And we go and we move into a new version of ourselves, and the version that we want to be. So that's kind of one of the biggest takeaways of this chapter that he gives is don't focus on on the things that you want. Focus on the person that you need to be. Focus on the person you need to become in order to achieve those things, in order to get those things that you want. And that's the key question, is what would a great leader do? What would a healthy person do? What would a great salesperson do, right? Those are the kinds of questions to ask. Now, again, I do have a bone to pick here with James Clear in this chapter, and I want to go over that because in this process of talking about these questions and changing our behaviors and this feedback loop and all that, he talks about voting, and he makes an analogy to voting that I don't necessarily agree with, and here's why, okay? He talks about the fact that in a vote, you don't need a unanimous vote to win an election, okay? You only need the majority, right? And so he kind of makes this leap in this analogy, which I was surprised by again, just like I was surprised by the sports one in the other chapter. He makes this leap that says, basically, all you have to do is choose the right thing more often than not, right? It's not about being perfect. It's not about making 100% great choices all the time. Yes, that's true, okay? That's not the bone that I have to pick here. But he also kind of equates it to a simple majority. And I think this is a very dangerous idea, okay? Because let's take an example of, again, we'll go back to being healthy, okay? We'll take this example of being healthy. If you made healthy choices 4 days out of every week, and then you made unhealthy choices 3 days out of every week, do you think that you would be healthy at the end of a year? I don't think you could consider yourself a healthy person if you're making 4 days a week healthy choices and 3 days a week unhealthy choices. I think that's too much. That's too many unhealthy choices. And if you go over the course of a year, you're talking about 208 days, okay, of good healthy choices, right? And 157 days of poor choices, if we're extrapolating it out to 365 days. 157 days of poor choices is a lot of poor choices to call yourself healthy. Okay, that's a lot of days living unhealthy. All right. And actually, if you go out, like that's a simple majority week by week, right? Multiplied out. Let's take the whole 365 days, the whole year, and let's make that a simple majority. That's 183 days of being healthy and 182 days of not being healthy. All right. Do you think you would be healthy at the end of a year if basically every other day you were doing unhealthy things? No, of course not. No logical person would think that, okay? But that's what he advocates here, is just all you got to do is make the better choice more often than the lesser choice, and you're going to be okay. Sounds dangerous to me, okay? I don't know about you, but like I say, when I break it down like that and I think of 183 days I'm doing the right thing and 182 days I'm not, that's a simple majority. That would win me an election. But that's not how life works. Life is not an election, all right? You need to be more like 80-20, all right? You need to see, I'm talking like you need over 300 days of healthy behavior per year and maybe 50 to 60 unhealthy days. And even that, like to me, sounds like a lot. That sounds like too much, like personally. And I'm a healthy person, so I feel like I can speak on this. So again, like 80-20 might not even be enough. Like you need an overwhelming majority if you want to move the needle and if you want to change your behaviors and change your trajectory. You don't just need a simple majority. So again, that's just the one little thing that I have to say about this chapter that kind of contradicts what James Clear says in this chapter. But it doesn't negate anything in the book. It's a great book. There's a lot of wonderful material in here. I'm learning a lot. And I'm seeing a lot of things that I already believe reinforced. So that's fantastic too, because it lets me know I'm on the right path. Let me know what you think. Drop a comment down below. And if you don't have the book yet, what are you doing? Get the book, okay? Go get your free Audible trial. I've got a link down here in the description. This book is a wonderful, fantastic experience with a lot of great knowledge in it. And I want you to be able to take part in this with me. So again, I encourage you to get the book. You can also head over to the website. It's www.yoursoulsource.com/resources. That is the page where, again, I also have links there to this book and for your Audible, but I also have some other links there, including my own personal notes. And so we can share notes on this book and on some other books too. So I have my notes there, and I'll send them to you if you're signed up with the resources there. And you can send me your notes, and we can compare notes, and we can kind of go through this stuff together, right? And there's a community of people there that have shared their notes and things like that. So it's a wonderful place to dive deeper into this stuff as well. So that's it for chapter 2, how your habits shape your identity and vice versa. All right, I will see you next time in chapter 3 for this book, but also I'm still posting every day, so these come on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but I'm still posting my regular videos too throughout the week, so check those out as well. And remember that excellence is a decision, and I will see you next time.
I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.